The time is now for the Dr. Bob Sports Podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics. And for the past 7 years, I've been working alongside Bob, originating our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, as always, I'm joined by our digital media specialist, Grant. We made it to the Christmas podcast. Maybe you should drop in a little Christmas tree or something in the edit.
Oh, yeah, we can get the Christmas trees going. We got the sweater on here. It's Christmas season.
Nice,
I jingle a little bit if you can hear that in the mic. So, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be a good Christmas. We got a bunch of football going on here, but let's dive into the show where our first segment is where we will be grading these script writers on how they did for episode 15 of this NFL season. And we've got a pair of storylines for that Saturday night game. And let's start with Buffalo dismantling Dallas last week easily, and they covered that -1.5 spread that you gave out on the podcast.
Yeah, that was a huge win for the Bills. They're currently listed at -220 to make the playoffs when it looked like such an uphill battle for them to get there. And I don't think any AFC team wants to play them if they get into the postseason.
No, I don't think they do either. And what do you think about the emergence of James Cook?
Cook had a career-high 25 rushing attempts against Dallas, a 64% rush success rate. And I think we'll see plenty more of Buffalo's ground game on Saturday night as the Chargers' rush defense ranks 30th, according to our numbers. And Cook is now up to third in yards per route run among running backs. And the Chargers are 28th in EPA per target allowed to running backs. So we could see another huge outing from James Cook on Saturday night.
Yeah, and the other storyline for the Saturday night game is the Chargers finally fired Brandon Staley.
Yeah, I mean, good riddance. Staley was such a coward. He was making the optimal decisions in his first season, but I feel like he let the media bully him out of doing the right thing. And then he spent the better part of 2 years reeling, caught in between, trying to be conservative to save his job. And then he was just losing games regardless. So, I mean, just go down swinging, man. It was pathetic to see what he was doing out there at the end.
Yeah, he definitely got soft. But what do you think, or what do you know about the intern Giff Smith?
Well, we don't really know much about him other than he's been with the Chargers predating Brandon Staley. He's the outside linebackers coach, so we might see a little bit of a bump from the defense. I mean, that defense has talent. They've been so bad in recent years with all this talent. I mean, maybe they finally all put it together with a new guy coaching. I mean, we saw earlier this year, the Panthers did not cover. That's the only other coach that has gotten fired. But teams are 15-11 against the spread since 2010 after firing their head coach. So there might be a little bit of a bump they get from Giff Smith, but we're not getting involved side or total here.
Yeah, that roster is way too good to be losing this many games. But let's shift over to our next segment. We've got our free bet of the week, and we released a one-star bet on under 51 in that Miami versus Dallas game.
Yeah, market moved to 50 on our release. I still think there's value down to 49. So if you're watching this and you're seeing a 50 or a 49 at your book, I would still play that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of injuries we kind of have to sort through here on that Miami side. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Miami's offensive line. So none of them practiced on Wednesday, and we may see 5 backups across the line against the Cowboys defense leading the NFL with a 46.5% pressure rate. So we saw Mike McDaniel try and compensate for that last week. Tua averaged a career low 2.08 second time to throw. Basically, they were like, let's take the offensive line out of this. Let's just get the ball out as quick as possible. But that was with Terron Armstead and Austin Jackson getting the majority of snaps, and now both of those guys might be out. So I could see McDaniel being incredibly cautious with Tua's dropbacks this week against the Dallas pass rush. And we talked about it earlier, the Dallas rush defense is weak. They're surrendering a league-high 45.3% rush success rate. The Bills had a 17% run rate over expected last week. That was the highest Buffalo has had in the last 3 seasons. So I think we could see something similar from the Dolphins, especially if they don't trust their backup offensive lineman to drop back. We could see McDaniel go extremely run heavy. We know he was the run game coordinator in San Francisco before becoming a head coach. And as long as they're in this game, I could see Miami, maybe having a 2/3 run rate just to not expose Tua with those backup offensive linemen.
Yeah, they've still got some explosive running backs back there with a lot of speed. So we got another guy, Tyreek Hill. Is he going to be back for this one?
I'm expecting him to be back when I was doing the handicap for this game, but I don't know that he's going to be able to average the league high 4.10 yards per route run that he has to this point. I mean, he missed that last game, with the ankle sprain. I think he'll still be a little bit encumbered by that ankle sprain on Saturday or on Sunday. So I don't think we can expect a fully explosive Tyreek Hill, but I do think he'll be on the field.
Yeah, and how do you think Miami's defense is going to defend Dak?
Well, Miami's defense is really solid at defending throws over the middle of the field. They're third, allowing just negative 0.17 EPA per play on throws over the middle of the field. And that's where Dak likes to go. Tight end Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb. Dak is averaging 0.39 EPA per play and throws over to the middle of the field. That's sixth in the NFL. But, I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like he's going to have to go elsewhere with the ball. We saw Jalen Ramsey shadowed Garrett Wilson last week. That's kind of becoming uncommon in the modern day NFL. But if Ramsey, he shut down Wilson, only allowing one target for 0 yards, and he could do the same for CeeDee Lamb. And even if CeeDee Lamb, tries to run away from Ramsey, tries to, get in motions, go in the slot, Miami nickelback Kader Kohu is fourth in yards per cover snap allowed in the slot. So I think Lamb is going to be taken away here, and Dak's going to have to go elsewhere with the football.
Yeah, and we see Miami has two safeties battling injuries, but Dallas isn't fully healthy either, are they?
Yeah, and I think Miami will get either Elliott or Holland, maybe both, back. But yeah, like you said, Dallas not fully healthy. All-pro right guard Zach Martin left last game with a thigh injury. Now he's pushing to be on the field this week for this big game, but it's going to be grueling for him across from interior defender Christian Wilkins, who's eighth in pressures this season. So our model is kind of right on market with the side. We have the Dolphins favored by about 1, but our predicted total for this game is 46.8. So I just think there's value on the under here, even if Tyreek plays, even if, Terron Armstead is able to gut through, that'd be one starting offensive lineman for the Dolphins. I just don't think that we'll see as much passing from the Dolphins. I think that Miami's defense can take away CD. So I like the under here.
All right, well, let's shift it over to our next segment. We've got the injury watch, and there's been some speculation that the Titans would give Malik Willis another chance since Levis is dealing with that high ankle sprain, but it looks like they're going to just go back with Tannehill.
Yeah, and with the Titans, kind of out of things here, I don't really know what they're gaining from going to Tannehill, but I guess they just want to win this game. I mean, guys, people in the NFL aren't tanking. They're trying to win games. So I do think Levis is out, and that's going to change the offense a little bit because Levis leads the NFL with 47 throws, having at least 20 air yards since he became the starter. And we know Ryan Tannehill likes to operate in more of the intermediate parts of the field. So that's going to change the route tree for DeAndre Hopkins, who's fourth with 12 deep receptions this year. And he wouldn't be able to beat Tyreek Woolen with all that speed deep anyways. Woolen's 13th in yards per cover snap allowed this year. So that'll be a little bit of a battle between Hopkins and Woolen, but I think we could see a huge game in the intermediate areas of the field from tight end Chig Okonkwo.
All right, well, what's the latest on Trevor Lawrence right now?
Well, at the time of this recording, we don't really know if Lawrence is going to be starting. I mean, if this was early in the season, basically no players were clearing concussion protocol and time to play. But now I think they're bending the rules a little bit as these games get higher leverage. And I could see Lawrence being out there. But whoever it is, Lawrence or CJ Beathard, will not have Christian Kirk or Zay Jones. And those two account for nearly half of Jacksonville's deep targets this season. So it's going to be a little bit more of a short passing game for Jacksonville, and Tampa Bay's defense is 25th in EPA per target allowed to tight end. So I think it'll be a healthy dose of Evan Ingram, who's 9th in yards per route run.
All right, well, we've got a bunch of injuries to touch up on in that Browns-Texans game. So let's start with the status of this Browns offensive line.
Yeah, so they were down 4 starters last week after Joe Bitonio went out, and the Bears had 4 sacks on Joe Flacco. Now, Cleveland might get back center Ethan Pochich this week, but Bitonio being out is very untimely as that'll be another, a backup left guard to line up across from Texans interior defender Malik Collins, who has 38 pressures this year. Now, the good news for Flacco is that the Texans will likely once again be without edge rusher Will Anderson, who has 51 pressures this year, and the rookie is worth 0.6 points by our numbers.
Yeah, and who else are the Texans missing on defense this week?
Well, It'll be Anderson, and then it'll also be safety Jimmy Ward. And that, could be a problem for Houston's defense because Browns tight end David Njoku is fourth, averaging 1.93 yards per route run in the games with Flacco this season.
All right. Well, are you expecting CJ Stroud to be back this week?
I'm not counting Stroud in right now. We certainly saw the market move when it became, when his status became in doubt. Now Cleveland has moved to a favorite. Now, Case Keenum averaged just 5.2 yards per pass play last week in Tennessee. But remember, he didn't have starting wide receivers Nico Collins or Tank Dell. And I don't think he'll have Dell again, but Collins could return, and that will be huge as Collins is fourth in EPA per target and worth about a point to Houston's offense, according to our metrics.
Are you thinking Keenum's going to be able to exploit this Cleveland defense without their starting safeties?
Yeah, I mean, Grant Delpit and Juan Thornhill look like they'll be out again this week. And Cleveland's defense, they've been pretty solid this year, one of the best in the NFL, but they've been weak in throws over the middle of the field, allowing 0.41 EPA per dropback on throws over the middle of the field. That's 27th in the league. So it's pretty crazy to see such a good pass defense be so weak in that area, and now without both starting safeties. Look at the other side. Houston's offense is averaging 0.66 EPA per play on throws over the middle of the field, second in the NFL. We've seen offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick come over from San Francisco, and he's doing kind of the same kind of Kyle Shanahan concepts over the middle of the field. So I think that Keenum will be able to find Nico Collins if he's back, on some big throws over the middle of the field this week. Also, tight end Dalton Schultz, fifth in EPA per target. He'll have a good matchup without Cleveland's starting safeties. And Houston should be getting back starting right tackle George Fant to limit Zadarius Smith, who ranks 19th in pass rushing efficiency.
All right. Well, it looks like the Colts are going to be playing without Michael Pittman, and they probably still aren't getting that starting right tackle back, are they?
Yeah, Braden Smith suffered that knee injury in the first quarter of Week 13 against Tennessee, and he's not quite going to be ready to be back for this game. It's looking like so. Backup Blake Freeland has been bad. He ranks 51st in pass blocking efficiency out of 54 qualifying guards. So the Colts offense is definitely going to get a boost when Braden Smith comes back, but not quite yet. Now Pittman, another big absence for the Indianapolis offense. Pittman is 18th in yards per route run this week, and the only remaining, competent wide receiver the Colts have is Alec Pierce, but he'll be shut down by cornerback AJ Terrell, who's 14th in yards per cover snap allowed.
All right, and our last one here, it looks like the Raiders are going to be getting back left tackle Colton Miller.
Yeah, now he hasn't suited up since that first game against the Chiefs, and this is huge. Colton Miller ranks 5th in pass blocking efficiency, and he should be back on the field this week to face the Chiefs once again. And Miller is very good. So that'll be a big boost to the Las Vegas offense. The other thing to note for Vegas is that, the Chiefs kind of ran up and down the field against them last time, 6.2 yards per play, but Max Crosby only had one pressure after being listed as doubtful heading into that game. And Crosby certainly wasn't 100% there, but now, he's coming off 10 days rest. He only played 60% of the snaps in that blowout last week. So Crosby will probably be a much bigger factor against the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Now, I kind of wanted to bet the Chiefs because I think their receivers have a really good matchup versus this Raiders secondary, but I'm holding off here with Miller coming back and with Crosby, being a lot more dangerous this time around.
Yeah, I'm not sure any matchup is a good matchup for the Chiefs receivers here, but let's shift it over to our next segment. We've got stock up, stock down, and whose stock are you buying right now?
I'm going to buy Steelers running backs stock. So the Bengals are going to be without interior defender DJ Reader. He's been ruled out for the remainder of the season with a quad injury, and he leads Cincinnati's defensive linemen with 18 run stops this season. And we already saw Najee Harris and Jalen Warren combine for 148 yards on 28 carries versus the Bengals in Week 12. And now, Cincinnati's defense is 28th in rush success rate allowed, and now they don't have DJ Reader. So it's going to be a turnstile for the Bengals the rest of the year defending opposing ground games. The other thing is that the Bengals are 26th in pass success rate allowed to running backs. So we could see screens to Jalen Warren in particular, who is 5th in yards per route run. So I love the matchup for the Steelers running backs this week.
I like that one. Well, whose stock are you going to be selling this week?
I'm selling the Cardinals linebacker stock. I mean, it's been a disaster with Kaiser White out. Arizona's linebackers surrendered 12.3 yards per target last week to the 49ers, and they allowed 7.8 yards per carry. And now that, they face a Bears team who loves to feed their running backs with a high run rate, and they like to throw a ton of screens. But the Cardinals are surrendering a 51% pass rate to running backs, pass success rate to running backs. That ranks 31st in the NFL, and they are 29th in rush success rate allowed. And we've already seen, Chicago nip Detroit on this angle a little bit earlier in the year, but Chicago is now 22-13 straight up, 21-13-1 against the spread at home after week 10 against dome or warm weather teams since 2005. We know, it's tough for those dome and warm weather teams to adjust to that cold Soldier Field. So I think that the Bears can bully these Cardinals linebackers this week.
I like it. A little gritty game there in Soldier Field, but let's shift it over. We've got our DraftKings player of the slate, and who do you have lined up for us this week?
This week, I've got Geno Smith at $5,800. So Smith was close to returning last week, and I expect him to suit up for this game, and he has a favorable matchup because Seattle's offense is averaging 27 more yards per attempt versus a standard pass rush than the blitz this year. They just haven't been able to pick up blitzes with so many moving parts on the offensive line, but the Titans have the sixth highest standard pass rush rate in the NFL, so they won't have to worry about blitzes too much, and the Titans will be without interior defender Jeffrey Simmons, who ranks 12th in pass rushing efficiency. He's been sidelined for the last 2 games. The other thing is the Titans are probably going to be without both starting cornerbacks, Sean Murphy-Bunting and Christian Fulton. And so backups Eric Guerrer and Trey Avery, we're just going to get absolutely torched by Seattle wide receivers DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I mean, Metcalf, 10 receptions on passes with 20-plus air yards, 9th in the NFL, and Lockett ranks 2nd in success rate. So I think this is a smash matchup for Geno in his first game back, coming back from that groin injury.
I had no idea that Lockett was that high on success rate. That kind of surprises me, but let's shift
He's
it over.
Had a good year.
Yeah, he has had a good year, but let's shift it over to our next segment. We've got the weather of the week, and what are you seeing out there for this Christmas time?
Well, it looks like we have a possible snow game in Denver, our first snow game of the year. I'll actually be in Denver visiting family, so I'm rooting for it, hoping to get a white Christmas out there. And let's just touch on snow because we haven't had a snow game yet this year. So snow does create lower scoring environments, but not as much as rain because defenders just slip in the snow more often than they do in rainy fields. And in the past, we've seen markets way over adjust for snow, even more than markets adjust for rain. So it'll be interesting to watch this total, which is already down to 34.5. If it is snowing out there in Denver, maybe it adjusts too far down and there could be value on the over.
I like that. Well, let's get into that game for our primetime preview. We have the Patriots versus the Broncos, and this looks like a great bounce back spot for the Broncos, who are still fighting for a wild card spot. But what are we going to see here from the Patriots?
Well, the Patriots might be without another key offensive player. Hunter Henry left last game after taking a hit to the knee in the fourth quarter, and that's going to be a huge blow, another huge blow for New England. It feels like they cannot catch a break this year. But, I mean, Henry is a 63% success rate. That's second among tight ends. He's worth 0.9 points to New England's offense, according to our metrics. And I expect offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien to not really ask too much of Bailey Zappi without Henry on the field. And he'll just go to the ground game as the Broncos are 30th in rush success rate allowed.
How do you expect the Patriots O-line to hold up this week?
Well, they lost starting left guard Cole Strange, and he was having kind of a mediocre year, but it's not a good week to lose a guard, especially because New England's interior offensive line was already responsible for 58% of the pressures. That's 7th most in the league because Zach Allen is one of the best interior pass rushers in the league. He has 51 pressures. That's 6th in the league, and he's definitely going to wreak havoc against a banged-up Patriots interior offensive line this week.
All right, so what are you expecting from this Broncos offense?
Well, the Broncos, they're 10th highest in run plate adjusted for situation. We talked about in podcast past how Sean Payton really isn't trusting Russell Wilson too much, but that's not going to work out this week. The Patriots are allowing a league low 31% rush success rate. So Payton is going to have to trust Russell Wilson this week. And sort of a favorable matchup as Wilson is averaging 16% more yards per attempt versus man than zone this year. And the Patriots have the third highest man coverage rate in the NFL.
How do the Patriots match up here on defense?
Well, from a pass rush standpoint, I mean, Christian Barmore's been the main guy since Judon went down. He's 19th in pressures among interior defenders, but he'll be pretty much shut down by Broncos center Lloyd Cushenberry, who's third in pass blocking efficiency. And they're not going to be able to generate a pass rush just sending 4. Patriots are already at 4th in blitz rate this year, so I think they probably will be sending a number of blitzes, but they've been caught in those blitzes in weeks past. They're 31st in EPA per target allowed to running backs. So we already know that Russell Wilson, he's targeting running backs on a league high 31.1% of passes this year. So I think that Sean Payton is going to dial up a ton of screens on Sunday night. So I don't know. Our model's not seeing much value. Cider total. We're favored than Broncos by 6.1 with a predicted total of 33.1. But if it's a heavy snow game, and the snow's kind of lightened up as we're recording this podcast on Thursday morning, it's looking less and less like the snow will be falling during the game. But if the weather changes, we do see a ton of snow. Watch for that total to drop. I'd say if it dips below into that 30 range, I think over might be a play because, like I talked about, with defenders slipping, Patriots getting caught in those blitzes.
I like it. Yeah, I feel like people always talk about the unders when we see that rain and snow, but you've talked about it for a long time here. Kind of helps the offense out a little bit. People fall all over the place, but let's look at our prime time prop. And last week you gave out Jared Goff over 251.5 passing yards, which he cleared that pretty easily. But what do you have lined up for us this week?
This week I'm going to go with Javonte Williams over 2.5 receptions. So let's look at Williams' season so far because it's been a crowded Broncos backfield. But Williams got hurt in week 4. Then he missed week 5. He didn't get any targets in his first game back in week 6. But he has run 91 routes since week 7. That leads the running back trios. Samaje Perine only 80 routes and Jaleel McLaughlin's only 35 routes. And Williams leads Denver's running backs, averaging 3.4 targets per game since he came back in week 7. I think we can expect at least 3 catches, given that Sean Payton will want to catch New England's defense in a blitz. And Williams has gone over this prop in 6 of his last 8 games since week 7.
I love that one. Well, I think that will do it for our Week 16 podcast. If you're looking for more content, head over to drbobsports.com, where you can find all the bowl game write-ups, and we've also got the college basketball model firing away here.
Yeah, and we're going to try and get Bob on next week to preview the college football semifinals and maybe give out some props. I'm not really sure when those get listed.
Nice. That'll be a fun one. Well, good luck to everyone in your fantasy football playoffs, and go ahead, leave us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. We will be back next Friday to talk Week 17 of the NFL.